I have a couple of questions regarding the events unfolding this weekend, and also von der Leyen's talk with the leaders. First, I would like to know why President Costa didn't join the calls with von der Leyen and the leaders of the region, and if she consult with President Costa, given that he is the person who represents the EU on foreign matters at the state level. Secondly, on the message, the first joint statement called on all parties to show restraint and respect the international law. This was not part of the wording of the President's tweets, and correct me if I'm wrong, neither this morning. So I would like to know if the President still is calling for all parties to show restraint and respect the international law. And thirdly, the President also urged for a transition in Iran. So I would like to know if he was referring to a transition between the Ayatollahs or a transition of regime change, and if she is speaking on behalf of the 27 member states. Thank you.
Several questions there, Jorge. Let me try to take one by one. On the consultations with the President of the European Council, the President is really very, very regularly and constantly in touch with the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa. The reason for not joining these calls is really a question of efficiency, of being able to. It was already difficult, as you can imagine, within such a short period of time to make sure that these contacts could be established. So really it's a question of allowing for these calls to take place, to coordinate, to understand from the leaders in the region what is their take, what is their views, to have a common understanding, which is then obviously also shared with the President of the European Council in case he's not doing the calls himself. On the reference to the international law, this was indeed, as you mentioned, part of the statement that President von der Leyen issued on Saturday, and it remains applicable. What she said on Saturday obviously hasn't changed, and she said there, among other elements in the statement, the President mentioned the call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, to protect civilians, and to fully respect international law. And I can't remember if there was a third question. Jorge, help me.
First,
yes.
you didn't reply. First, you didn't reply if she consulted with Costa the message. And then the third question was if she was speaking on behalf of the 27 when she urged for a transition in Iran, if that transition is referring to a change of leadership among Ayatollahs or regime change.
Thank you, Jorge. So, you know that in the meantime, yesterday there was a statement by the HRVP on behalf of the 27 member states, and that's the position of the EU, and we can go further into that with Anwar. That's the position of the EU. When it comes to the transition in Iran, the President said also very clearly that we support the right, we strongly support the right of the Iranian people to determine their own future. This was the call and the expression of support to the people of Iran to determine their own future. And at this occasion, let us remind ourselves that we're speaking about one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, that only recently killed its own people who were protesting in a peaceful way. That's what we are talking about here. And in that context, the President called and echoed her strong support to the right of the people in Iran to determine their own future. Anwar, on the EU 27 statement, which reflects the position at this moment of the EU and its 27 member states.
Indeed, Paola. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you. Indeed, the EU27 statement is the highest form of statements that we have at ministerial level, a statement by the High Representative on behalf of the European Union, which means approved by the EU27 foreign ministers. In terms of the situation at hand and the question that you have raised, we as EU reiterated our solidarity with the Iranian people, and we strongly support their fundamental aspirations for a future where their universal human rights and fundamental freedoms are fully respected. I will go back to the point that Paola raised because this is quite important to stress here, and the High Representative has also been quite clear about that in her remarks over the weekend, very active weekend. The death of Ali Khamenei is a defining moment in Iran's history. He will be remembered for his harsh rule, repression, oppression, violations of the rights of the Iranian people, as well as for Iran's destabilizing and unlawful actions across the Middle East and beyond. Let's not forget that this regime has killed thousands of their own citizens, thousands of their own children. In terms of what we have seen also from this regime, we have seen a regime that has been violating international law on a recurrent way and for a long time, together with their legal commitments in terms of the JCPOA and also in terms of nuclear proliferation. We have also seen this regime supporting terrorist groups across the Middle East and beyond, with also impact on the EU security and stability. We also have seen hybrid activities of this regime on EU soil, together with arbitrary detention of EU citizens. And this is why we have been taking action in terms of the measures and the actions of this regime, together with the foreign ministers when we adopted sanctions, different kind of sanctions under different regimes to actually address the multifaceted threats that we have seen coming from this regime.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Good morning, Vincenzo Genovese from Euronews. Beyond the condemnation for Iran indiscriminate attacks on many countries in the region and the repression on the Iranian people that you mentioned, does the European Commission also consider the US and Israeli strikes on Iran that actually started the escalation on Saturday as a breach of the international law? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our position is quite clear and, again, outlined in the highest form possible in terms of EU diplomacy, which is the EU27 statement. We call for full respect of international law, including the principles of the United Nations Charter. This is our official position, and I think it is crystal clear.
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. Andrew Gray from Reuters. Just to follow up on that, does the Commission continue to stand by the principle of an international rules-based order and territorial integrity, or has that gone out the window over the weekend?
Listen, Andrew, I think it's worth recalling what's been the stance of the European Union in this regard, and to remind ourselves that we've always prioritized diplomacy. And we've adopted sanctions, as Anwar reminded, against a regime who was killing its own people. We adopted sanctions also against the regime itself in the form of the Revolutionary Guard. And in all of this, we prioritized diplomacy. We do not forget, however, that we are dealing indeed with an extremely oppressive regime. And in the past days, in the various statements that have come out, we still and again said that the only lasting solution is a diplomatic solution that has also been clearly stated by the President herself. David.
Thank you. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. You are saying and saying again that it's crystal clear what you are saying. But sorry, je vais passer en français, peut-être c'est moi qui ne comprends pas l'anglais de bonne façon. Première chose, est-ce que l'Union européenne et je demande aussi la présidente de la Commission considère les attaques des États-Unis et d'Israël de samedi qui ont porté au développement suivant comme illégaux au point de vue international ou pas? Je ne demande pas si vous demandez de respecter. Est-ce que vous considérez qu'il y a une violation du droit international? Le Premier ministre espagnol l'a dit. Je voulais savoir quelle est la position de l'Union européenne et de la présidente de la Commission. Deuxième question. Quand Mme von der Leyen demande la transition, elle parle à nom de qui? De la Commission européenne, de l'Union européenne ou de soi-même? Merci.
Madame von der Leyen, comme tu le sais, est la présidente de la Commission et aussi fait partie du Conseil européen. Et dans toutes ces démarches qu'elle a eues, elle a d'abord exprimé son soutien et le soutien de la Commission européenne aux pays du voisinage de l'Iran qui étaient frappés. En termes de la position, et on l'a dit en anglais, on peut le dire en français aussi, la position de l'Union européenne a été mise au point, et ce n'est pas évident, comme vous le savez, d'avoir une position commune sur un sujet comme celui-ci. On a une position commune dans une déclaration qui a été approuvée hier. Et la présidente a dit très clairement quelle était sa position là-dessus. Ce qu'elle n'a pas dit, elle n'a pas dit. Ce qu'elle a dit, elle l'a dit de façon très claire. Antoine.
Thank you, Paola. This is a follow-up on the potential or on the breach of the international law. I must say, I really don't understand your position neither. This is not clear to me at all. I'm struggling a lot. So simply putting it, does the EU support the US and Israel attacks? And if that's the case, why or why not? Thank you.
What we do not support is the oppressive regime that has been killing people in Iran, and that is against any law. And I think we don't disagree with that. As from that, again, you may wish to hear some words or different words, but what has been said is what has been said, and what is it that we've called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, to fully respect international law, and looking now at the situation, we are looking into ensuring the protection of the citizens and ensuring the stability of the region. And that's the position, and I won't go beyond what has been the position that has been stated clearly on the one hand in the EU statement and by the President herself. Oui.
It's a follow-up?
Non, on a beaucoup de questions, donc on continue. Vas-y, Philippe. Non. Oui.
Olivier Bobet, AFP. Since we, or the European Union or the European Commission, strongly supports the right of the Iranian people to choose its own leaders, how does the EU or the European Commission intend to help the Iranian people to achieve its goals?
Merci. Thank you, Olivier. We will not surprise you here. We remain true to our values. And it is for the Iranian people to decide for their own future. In the same time, what we do here is reiterating our solidarity with the Iranian people, and we strongly support their fundamental aspirations for a future where their universal human rights are respected.
Yeah, Jorge.
Hello, Paula. The situation in the Middle East has heightened a sense of alarm around Cyprus, which is the closest member state to the region. We've seen the reports of the unmanned vehicles reaching the British military base. The Cyprus presidency was forced to postpone a meeting of ministers that was scheduled for today. Is the European Commission already preparing for the potential activation of the EU's mutual assistance clause in case that the situation further escalates? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. These questions and this question, which is a valid question, is certainly going to be discussed in the coming days in the various meetings that are foreseen. I cannot prejudge. For the moment, there is no such discussion has taken place on the activation of the mutual defence clause. We'll have to see if this is the case in the coming days. Stefan.
Yes, there are some voices in the parliament and outside that criticize that President von der Leyen is actually acting outside of her competencies with these calls and statements on foreign policy issues. How would you react on that? And I still have not really understood what the role of this security college is and what can be expected. Thank you.
The President is acting in the remit of her competences, as I explained before, very, very clearly. And on the Security Council, you know that this is a meeting of the College of Commissioners, an ad hoc meeting when the circumstances ask for a dedicated meeting of the College on security matters. And clearly this, the events during the weekend completely justify the meeting of the College of Commissioners dedicated to the developments in the Middle East. And there the members of the College will take stock of the various topics, from energy to security in the broad term, to migration, and the various implications that the unfolding events may have on the various policy areas. So it's about taking stock, assessing what is going on, and from there possibly decide on next steps, on concrete actions in the various policy areas which are covered by the different members of the College. Oui.
Thank you, Tatiana Litvinova. It's working. Tatiana Litvinova, Громадське Radio Ukraine. Question about Ukraine. Media reports say that Hungary could lift its veto on the 19 billion loan for Ukraine if it received approval for a 16 billion euro defense loan under the EU SAFE program. And can you say if this somehow linked, and what option being considered to move forward despite this veto?
It's a good segue to change the topic. And we've said that a number of times, but Thomas, please join us. There are three SAFE plans, which have still not been adopted. And I guess this is because we're not ready for adoption.
Exactly, indeed. I mean, we're advancing at full speed. I mean, 16 plans were approved, 3 approved not only by the Commission but also by the Council. We're now soon going to provide initial disbursement so that the projects can start in these 16 first member states. Now 3 are still on the table, Czechia, France and Hungary. Work is still needed on these 3 plans because they are not yet complete for the Commission to be able to approve them. But as defence is obviously a top priority for the Commission, we're actively working on these 3 remaining plans too. Yes.
Carl.
Carl Meyer for Les Echos. Thomas, thank you, but can you please explain the reasons why these three plans haven't been approved yet?
Hard for me to go into very sensitive elements of these plans. For some of them, more information is needed on the concrete projects. For some of them, we need to align the funding to be able to be completely aligned with the tentative allocation that was given to the member states. So all of this is important, but a very important point also to stress here from this podium, we haven't rejected any plan. We haven't said that any plan is problematic. To the opposite, we're saying that it's good, we're advancing quickly, but we need still a bit more time for these three remaining plans.
Roland.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roland Pap with Nemsova. A follow-up on this. Are these three plans do they need to go together, or can you separate the Czech and the French from the Hungarian, for example?
We will take it plan by plan once they're ready. So they can come together if all of them are ready at the same time. They can also come separately. So this really depends on the relation we have with the member states on their individual plans. So we take it plan by plan.
Angela.
Okay, it's working. Angela Mauro, HuffPost Italy, thanks. I go back to the Gulf, to the Iran crisis. And I've got two questions. The EU, of course, has a EU special representative for the Gulf countries, Luigi Di Maio. May we know his contacts, agenda, activity in these critical hours? And the other question is, again, on the US-Israeli attack. Even the Pentagon admitted that there was no imminent danger of attack by the Iran regime. I was wondering if this news which arrived today, the admittances of today, a briefing today in Washington, gives you the opportunity to elaborate more on the Israeli and US attack against Iran. Thanks.
On the special representative, Anwar.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I'll speak on behalf of the High Representative here, who's in charge. You will have seen her extremely active weekend on so many different fronts in terms of contacts with interlocutors in the region, together with activating and mobilizing all the tools that we had at our disposal in terms of the activity of the European External Action Service, from a PSC meeting, COREPER, and culminating into a Foreign Affairs Council. Why? To defend EU interests, to secure the EU neighborhood, and to protect EU citizens. And with that in mind, the High Representative also mentioned the different actions that the EU is taking, because all these meetings have an actionable perspective. In terms of securing the safety of our citizens. This is our priority, and this is why we are coordinating consular assistance for those stranded in the region. Then, on your question, in terms of the Gulf, from a perspective that deals with another tool that we have at our disposal, which is our naval operation, EUNAVFOR Aspides. This mission has seen a sharp rise in protection requests, and we will be reinforcing it with additional ships to bolster maritime security in the region. From a diplomatic perspective now, you raised the angle of the Special Representative for the Gulf, who is doing a great job in that portfolio per se. The High Representative also announced that we are planning to convene a joint EU-GCC ministerial meeting, which is the highest form of engagement in terms of ministerial participation between the European Union and the Gulf Cooperation Council. And you will know, because you will have followed the events over the weekend, that the 6 member states of the Gulf Cooperation Council have also been hit very harshly and hardly in terms of Iranian attacks. So this is the direction of travel in terms of contacts of the High Representative on the issue from your Gulf perspective.
And Angela, on your question, you've said it also yourself. The situation since Saturday morning has been evolving as we speak, with always new elements. So I'm pretty sure that we will still be in this press room addressing this question and from various angles and adding also elements from our side. At this point now, I have nothing to add to your question compared to what the President said herself in her statements, in her posts over the past 2 days. But I know this will not end here, and of course we will be having new comments to share, new reactions to share as things evolve. And one imminent one is indeed now the Security College that will start in a few minutes. So with this, and as said, because we don't have anything to add at this stage, and we covered a variety of angles on this question, I suggest we move to other subjects which may also require the attention of this press room today. There, please.
Thank you. Anna Hubert for Context. Just a super quick question on the agenda. Does it mean that there is 3 college meetings this week, counting the one on energy prices? Is it still on the agenda for the 6th? Thank you.
Well noted, indeed. I hadn't even realized yet, but yes, there will be 3 meetings of the college this week. Today in the format of the Security College, on Wednesday, the usual weekly meeting of the college, and then Friday, if I'm not mistaken, an orientation debate on energy prices. Indeed, I can confirm that. Vitaly.
Thank you. Vitaly Sizov, Freedom. I have 2 questions. First, this weekend it was action against the shadow fleet by Belgium and France. Do you have some comment on this? And is EU going to scale up this experience in some way? I don't know, maybe illegal to scale up this activity. It's first question, I think, for Anita. And the second, this situation in Iran with the United States, from your view, could it influence military supply for Ukraine? Because some EU countries, they are very involved in these all activities, and there are a high level of usage air defense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vitaly. On the second question is a question mainly to the member states, of course, who do owe military equipment. On the first question, and thank you for raising it because it's good news, and it shows that the sanctions are working. Anita,
Absolutely.
What can we say about it?
Absolutely, the sanctions are working, our actions are working, and this also sends a clear and unmistakable signal that we are serious about countering the shadow fleet, and also by closing every loophole that Russia seeks to exploit. What we have right now is that the foreign affairs ministers have agreed to sanction shadow fleet vessels on a rolling basis. We have also the shadow fleet coordinator since 20 of October last year, and he's also in close touch with the member states to coordinate and also to see any type of good practices that we can use in this regard. So what we do right now is to pass a very strong message on acting to stop Russia's capacity to finance this war of aggression against Ukraine.
Thank you, Anita. Vitaly, you have a follow-up?
Just should follow up. Was EU involved in this activity, and in which capacity? Did you provide the list of this shadow fleet, or maybe another way? Thank you.
The Shadow Fleet Coordinator is always in close touch with all the member states throughout, but I will not be able to provide you with operational and confidential details of these operations. This is also for the member states to do so.
Okay. Other questions on different topics? We can change topic now. Go ahead.
Hi, Peggy Conan speaking for Euronews. It's on the EU-US trade deal. I would like to know whether you got some clarity on the deal and whether there has been some recent contact with the US administration on that. Thank you.
Let's see with Olaf whether there have been any recent contacts. On a terminé. La partie affaires étrangères. Thank you.
Where am I looking? Hi, Peggy. Yeah, thanks for your question. So I don't have any update to provide at this moment, and I'm not aware of any contacts in the past few days, but other events have taken precedence, as I'm sure you understand.
Carl?
Yes, I wonder whether the German Chancellor, who is going to DC this week, has been in contact with the President about this subject, and if he will coordinate with other member states on the subject of tariffs.
Oh, thanks for the question. And with Paola's permission, I can say that, I mean, if we're talking strictly about the tariff issue as it relates to the US, then the President has been coordinating with all leaders as is appropriate and necessary. And I think you've seen a striking degree of convergence in the views right across the EU on how we deal with this topic, and that will continue to be the case.
Thank you. And the questions to Olaf. No. Philip, other topics?
Yeah, on energy, Philip Edosylvin with the Norwegian media Energi og Klima. The crisis in around Iran and the Hormuz Strait has caused energy prices to spike in recent days, and obviously this will be a topic at the college meetings, but can you already at this point say what kind of strategy the Commission has to reduce prices and ensure the security of supply of energy in the European Union?
I will start with the security of supply aspect. Our analysis is that there is no immediate security of supply concern for the European Union. We have asked our member states to share their national assessments with us by the end of today, and we will be convening an oil coordination group within the next 48 hours. And as regards prices, as you correctly pointed out, there is a dedicated orientation debate to this topic on Friday. And it is not excluded that this will also be touched upon in the Security College today. We do not comment energy prices here. It is clear that how the global transportation routes and transportation patterns will look like is something that obviously will, in longer term, determine the price structure as well. But beyond that, I would not comment on the prices. But again, there will be two very high-level discussions on that topic today, this week.
And we have time for one final question. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Also on energy, Ian Johnston from the Financial Times. Just wonder if you could speak specifically about gas storage levels. We're seeing them at about 30% across the EU. Some member states are as low as around 10. Is that going to be a specific cause for concern, and any concrete actions you'll be taking to address that, given that we're seeing some LNG tankers being disrupted in the Strait of Hormuz?
Correctly, our current EU underground gas storage is at around 30%, and it's still within the limits of setting for the EU to set the end of the winter at adequate levels and ensure refilling over the next summer. So we're not taking any emergency measures or anything like this. There is no shortage. There is no emergency. Our gas imports are well diversified, and this is something that we've been paying lots of attention to in the past years. So we are as we are ready to convene a oil coordination group, we are also ready to convene a gas coordination group. If there's a need for this, our member states can always make this request to us. But for the time being, we're not seeing anything of concern there.
And the good news, because we really need good news, is that we are less than a month away from the end of the heating season in storage terms. And we've all already started feeling it, at least in this part of Europe, with temperatures going up. So we're still at the safe levels of storage, and we're counting down to the end of the heating season, which takes place at the end of the month. So that means we should have made it in terms of the winter, but let's see how things evolve also in the world.